Alright guys, many times students have come up to me and told me that they don't get enough time to complete their written examinations. So I thought today I'll take up this topic and talk a little bit about it, give you some important tips on how to approach this written exams so that you are never run out of time. You always have enough time on your hands. Because I believe that after you finish your exams, you should have some time to just go through the paper once again to make sure that you have not made any silly mistakes. So here is my tip number one. Always do the easy questions first. It doesn't matter how many marks they carry. Sometimes what students do is they focus more on the questions that have more weightage to it, more marks. But I don't believe in that. I think you should try to attempt the questions which are easier, even if they have 1 mark or 2 marks. Because as you start to score well in these easy questions and you start to gain that confidence, and that helps you a lot in the exam. Because sometimes even when you know the question of heavy weightage, and if something goes wrong, then it distracts you, and you get disturbed, and then you start messing up even in the questions that you are very confident. So always try to answer the questions which are easy, get those marks under your belt, and then move on to the questions which may be slightly tougher or maybe slightly lengthier to solve. So that was tip number one. Do the questions that are easy. Tip number two, look at the marks allotted to each question and don't spend any more time than that is required. Alright, so let's say that you have a 100 marks paper and you have 3 hours to solve that 100 marks paper. So 3 hours equals 180 minutes, and you have 100 marks paper. So for each mark you have 180 divided by 100, that is 1.8 minutes. For each mark you have 1.8 minutes. So for a 5-mark question you will have 1.8 multiplied by 5 minutes. So what is that? That is about 9 minutes. So for a 5-mark question, you should not be spending more than 9 minutes in answering that question. If you are spending more than that, leave it that time. Leave some space behind it or after it and move on to the next question. So similarly, if you have a 20-mark question, you should not be spending more than 36 minutes on that question. 20 multiplied by 1.8 is 36 minutes. If you are spending anything more than that, then you should be moving on to the next question. Make sure that you attempt all the questions, and then come back to, if you have some time left, come back to the question you were trying to solve before and then do it. Alright, so my second tip would be that always spend the time that is allotted to the question based on the marks. Alright, you should also have some spare time, in fact, available to you to check the paper again, just to make sure you have not made any silly mistakes. My third tip, don't try to perfect your answer. Some students know a lot about a topic, and when they see a question related to that topic, what do? They start writing everything that they know about it. No, that's not a good strategy. Even though you know everything about it, maybe say it's a 10-mark question and you know a lot about it, but you don't have to write everything. Even if you write everything, you will get 10 marks, and even if you write what was asked of you, you will still get 10 marks. So students spend a lot of time in answering questions that they know very well about, and then they don't write enough in the other questions. So you've got to distribute that time carefully. So even though you may know a lot about a certain topic, only write what has been asked of you. Don't spend any more time than that. And then move on to the next question. You can always come back and write more, but ask yourself, is it going to get me more marks? Am I here to impress the marker or assessor? Yes, I am here to impress the marker, but you don't have to write unnecessary information, more than what is required. Tip number 4. Don't dwell too much on questions you don't know answer to. Don't dwell on that. Don't keep thinking, oh, I don't know this. Do the questions that you know. Write them well. If you don't know an answer, or if you don't know something, or if you don't know the question at all, you don't know what to write, come back to that at the end of the paper. Don't dwell on it, because the more you dwell on it, the more time you spend on it, you keep thinking about it, and now you are distracted from the other questions. So if you dwell too much on stuff that you don't know in the paper, then you are in trouble. You don't want to do that. You have to find the questions that appeal to you and keep doing that. Forget about the one that you don't know. And the last tip on how to tackle questions that you don't know. So I'll give you an example. There was an engineering paper I did many years back when I was a master, and I did my papers in India. Of course, in India, at master's level, they used to expect us to have very good engineering knowledge. I was not very good in engineering knowledge, to be very honest. I didn't study much for it. But what I did was I made sure I understood the diagrams. So when I went for the exam, I'll be very honest, I didn't know many of the questions. I didn't know how to explain it. But because I knew the diagrams, for a question, I would draw the diagram. Just draw the diagram, label the diagram, and maybe talk a little bit about it. I didn't know the technical aspects of it. I didn't know exactly how it all worked, but I drew the block diagram, and I drew it like a block diagram. I didn't draw engine parts of the engine, or I didn't draw a ship's engine, but I just drew a block diagram and explained it in my own words. So this is one example. So if there's some question that you have no idea about, come to it at the end of the paper if you have some spare time left, and make sure you write what you can. Maybe a block diagram, maybe a couple of lines, maybe a regulation. Just write something, maybe a publication in which it is discussed, because that gives the assessor some idea that okay, maybe you knew about it and you forgot. Because assessors, we understand how students think and what they know, and what they might be nervous in the exam. They may have had a memory lapse and forgotten some of the important bits. Alright, so these are my 5 tips. I hope you find them useful, because I have students complaining to me always that oh, I ran out of time. So I thought I'll make a video on this. On my live stream, I'll probably talk about oral examinations, and I'll give you some useful tips in approaching oral examinations, and I hope that you find that useful as well. So I look forward to seeing you guys for my live stream on Sunday, that is the 11th of May at 18:30 hours Australian Eastern Standard Time. Thanks and see you. Bye bye.